and recorded.
Great.
Thank you, please.
Thank you. And also, please, if you can, keep the microphones off during the presentations to avoid interferences. And so I was saying this is the first webinar of this series that we hope will be intensive and until, let's say, the end of this year. Experiences of DigComp usage by entities, organizations who work with adult educators. Before getting into the real topic, I want to pass on the floor to Peter Palvolgyi, who is the Chief Executive Officer of All Digital, to say a few words about the All Digital Weeks, which is the context in which this event today is taking place. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Stefano. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for our speakers joining us today and share their DigComp use experience. I would like to basically welcome you with a few slides and putting the event in the context of the All Digital Weeks campaign, which is our annual awareness raising campaign on digital skills. And the title this year is Enhance Your Digital Skills, very much aligned with the European Commission's Year of Skills initiative. So the All Digital Weeks campaign is one of the major European campaigns on digital skills, and it's an awareness raising campaign on digital skills for inclusion, empowerment, and employment. It's been organized by All Digital and the All Digital Network since 2010, and since then we have helped almost 1.5 million people to participate in different programs that help them to get online either in the first time or develop their digital competencies. This year, our campaign is a 3-week-long campaign from the 17th April, so it started last Monday until the end of next week. It's funded and supported by the European Commission, and it involves international partners, national partners, local partners, a lot of participating organizations in plenty of European countries, including digital competence centers, libraries, schools, universities, and other institutions. This year, we have 6 core themes around which we organize events, webinars, training programs, focusing on DigComp framework and digital skills certifications, but also digital skills for equity, diversity, and inclusion, digital media literacy and culture, cybersecurity and safer internet, digital skills for environment and sustainability, and digital skills for specific sectors. The campaign itself is, as I mentioned, co-funded by the European Union, and we have industrial partners, Certiport and Microsoft, who are also supporting our campaign. We also have 21 national coordinators in 21 European countries who are promoting the campaign and coordinating events in those countries during the All Digital Weeks campaign. And we have 19 strategic partners, European, international organizations, who are supporting us in spreading the word, promoting the campaign across Europe through their networks. Anyone can join the campaign by organizing an event or a training program or any activity which is focused on digital skills development. And our main website for the weeks is alldigitalweeks.eu. And after registering, anyone who is organizing an event can also include their events on the map. And we have now hundreds of events already shown on this map of the campaign. As I mentioned, the campaign is running for 3 weeks, and these were our activities last week. And we had an international launch event of the campaign last Wednesday. Commissioner Nicolas Schmit was the one opening the campaign, which was taking place here in Brussels. Then this is the program for this week, and as you see, this is our second event for this week, DigComp use in training organizations, and we will have a couple of other events, and plenty more coming next week. So please keep an eye on the All Digital Week's website and look for events that might be interesting and useful for you. And we will close with a closing event next Friday. So if you need any more information, feel free to contact All Digital and follow our news on the alldigitalweeks.eu website. Thank you so much. And Stefano, I would like to give the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And okay, we can now move into the heart of this webinar. I will pass the floor on to Denis Bertinchamps, who is from Bruxelles Formation, and Gaylord Luypaert from AFP, the two training organizations. They will give their presentation. At the end, as you know, we have planned a questions and answer session. So if during the presentation anything comes up to your mind, just write it down in the chat. And at the end, or if they won't decide to stop to have a pause in the middle, we can also do it then. We will pick up your questions and try to answer to them. So thank you, Denis and Gaylord. Up to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefano. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me properly?
Perfectly.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you. Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk today about the DigComp use in training organizations. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Okay, my name is Denis Bertinchamps. I'm a pedagogical advisor at Bruxelles Formation, and my friend and colleague Gaylord.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you very much. I'm Gaylord Luypaert, and I'm an institutional digital mediator at EFP in Brussels.
So a few words about Bruxelles Formation. We are a French-speaking public service for professional training in Brussels. So we provide a variety of trainings from ranging from different sectors, starting from construction to logistic to specialized IT, also basic digital skills management across 12 different training centers. We are managing all professional trainings in Brussels, and I mean French-speaking Brussels, and also we are a partner in certification.
So some words about EFP. So EFP is an alternative training center in Brussels. It's based on the apprenticeship model, where learners spend 1 or 2 days a week at the center and learn the trade directly in a company for the rest of the time. We offer more than 90 vocational trainings programs, ranging from bakers, mechanics, web developers, to real estate agents. At EFP, there are 3 programs available: apprenticeship, a youth program for students, an adult program, and lifelong learning program designed for professionals. We have approximately 7,000 learners and 500 trainers.
Thank you, Gaylord. So today's webinar, what we want to talk about mainly is to share our experience using DigComp. We hope this is going to be relevant for you, and we structured the webinar this way. So we're going to start to talk about, and then the second part is the analysis of the training provision from the EFP, based on the DigComp framework, and the next step in integrating the DigComp reference framework. Following this, we're going to talk about the creation and implementation of a positioning test to assess the basic digital skills of learners. And then we're going to finish with our key takeaways using DigComp and start with and finish with a Q&A session. So we decided to split the presentation between EFP and Bruxelles Formation. So both organizations are working on the same, but we've decided to spend more time on one aspect of it rather than explaining a little bit less. But both organizations are working have done similar work that could be interesting too, but we really think it's more interesting to spend more time on one of the two projects. So a little bit of background, we're all aware of this, but about the importance of digital inclusion. But in Belgium, according to the latest studies, approximately 39% of Belgians have insufficient digital skills, and 7% of Belgians are non-users of digital technology, which brings us to 46% of Belgians that are not used to or cannot use properly digital skills. So that means that approximately 1 in 2 Belgians does not have enough digital skills, which this basis was the born of the Start Digital project, which was a project that started in 2020 and ended in September 2022. It was a multi-partner project, including training providers in Belgium, French-speaking Belgium and Wallonia and Brussels. And the project had different objectives. The first one was to use a common framework between the training providers, and the common framework selected was DigComp, and they also aimed to increase collaboration between the Belgian institutions and to mutualize tools and pedagogical content. So this is the logo of the different partners. Starting with the content of the webinar, DigComp-related materials and tools. So we're going to talk during the Start Digital project, and after we've created there are many different tools, digital tools, pedagogical tools that we've created, but we want to focus on 2. The first one is the training framework, and the second one is Comprendre DigComp, which translates to popularizing DigComp. Those 2 materials were created because at the time there was not much materials created in French, and those 2 documents are, to Gaylord and I, the foundation based on to the creation of all the following content to create the teaching content. So the training framework, this one is based on DigComp 2.1 for the simple reason that we work on this before 2.2 was released. It's a document that describes each competency, DigComp competency, in a training framework that can be used by teachers and training designers. So it describes each competency to a very specific details. It includes the definition of the competence. It's written in French, of course. It describes each competency to a specific knowledge and skills across 3 levels of difficulty. It also had associated content, for example, links to find more information related to the competency, and also pedagogical guidelines and resources. So this is a screenshot of an example of 1 page. So you can see the title with the blue box, which includes the title of the competency, and then the proficiency level, which start from A to C. So A is beginner, B intermediate, and C advanced. A level is a correlation between level 2, the end of level 2, the level from DigComp. So in the green square, there's on the left is the savoir, which means knowledge, and on the right is aptitude and skills. So for each competency, it describes examples of knowledge and example of skills. So for level A, it includes the basic knowledge and skills required, and then level B includes additional content. So of course, level B, intermediate, includes the same knowledge and competencies as level A, but is more complex. So every level builds on. So that was written before the examples were provided for DigComp 2.2. This is a screenshot of the pedagogical resources. So the purpose of this content is anyone looking to create content based for this competency can have something to start on. So there were suggestions that someone can, not familiar with DigComp or with the competency, can read. In terms of the feedback from this content, from this material, it is really useful from curriculum design. We know that some of our partners, that the partner of the Start Digital project, are now using this for curriculum design, for adding DigComp content into their training. It needs to be updated, of course, because it was written by the time the DigComp 2.2 was released. So there's some updates that needs to be done. And what is really interesting is the 3 level of mastery for each example, because we know that DigComp 2.2 does not provide this kind of specificity. So this is something interesting. As a general feedback, it is quite difficult to understand to the point that, meaning that it is not a document that you can share to anyone and waiting for them to understand it. It is quite complex, and there's some kind of expertise needed or time to familiarize the individual with. So it needs to be contextualized for trainers. This is how it's used at the moment, and we think it's important. Which leads us to the second document, Comprendre DigComp 2.1, which was following the framework. We realized that there was a need to create a simpler version of DigComp, simply to make it easier to understand for educational staff in Belgium. It's a PDF document. It describes each competency and also the related tools. For example, what are the tools related to the first area of competence? It's a data management system, Windows, some kind of mailbox management, a web browser, etc. And it also adds 3 examples, concrete, specific example based on private life and professional life. When DigComp 2.2 was released, Gaylord and I decided to create a version, a popularized version of DigComp 2.2, which is now live on a website. We decided to put it on a website because we think it's interesting to update. So it's easier. We believe it's easier to update and also to add comments from others, to share it with others. But of course, it's also available as a PDF. So this DigComp 2.2 adds a translated and popularized version of the 250 examples in French. What do we mean by popularizing? It's a good question, thank you. We use a simple language. We try to use a simple language, so not only to translate it as it is, but we took the freedom, the initiative to change the wording when we thought we could make it a little bit simpler. And this is an example of the general conduct, the general mindset that we had. So we try to use a simple language and to start with an action verb, which was not the case at example. But of course, it was a discussion between Gaylord and I. Sometimes we did not agree with each other. Sometimes I wanted to take more freedom on changing the example to make it more specific. So we really want to say that this is our mindset. It's open to discussion. Of course, it can be improved. This is a suggestion, and it's important to discuss and to share. So as for now, the website has been visited since its launch in March by 458 single users. This is we've added a map from a user worldwide. I'm not sure why there's many users from China, but we can see where we've been visited from France and Belgium and other countries. So moving on to the next part.
Okay, thank you, Denis. So I will be speaking about the project of analysis of the EFP current training provision in light of the DigComp framework. So as a reminder, our May learners are people who come to train for a profession to either become self-employed or employed. Our objective at EFP regarding the digital is to ensure that each learner who completes a training program with us should have basic digital skills, in addition, of course, to mastering the professional skills related to their profession. So to achieve this, we have started a project based on DigComp, which I will briefly summarize to you in 2 main steps. The first steps will focus on training program analysis, and the second step will focus on the digital competency integration into our training program. So step 1, how we analyzed our training offers in light of the DigComp framework in order to identify potential gaps and potential improvements. So in 2020, we analyzed all the digital competency covered in our vocational training program using the DigComp framework 2.1 and the description of the 21 competency. To do this, we used the training curriculum document of each program as a starting point. So what is a training curriculum document? It's the key document for creating and implementing a vocational training program at EFP. It's used by trainers as a guide to create and design their courses, and it provides information about course description, content, learner outcomes, so knowledge, skills, attitudes of a particular training program. For each vocational training program, the educational advisors team analyze all courses to identify the DigComp digital competency covered and at what level. So 0 indicating that the competency is not covered, 1 indicating that that is covered at a beginner level, 2 at an intermediate level, and 3 at an advanced level. So for a global overview, this table display each of the 21 competency as columns and our training program as rows. By doing this, we found that some training programs cover many digital competency, while others did not cover any at all. So for example, we can see that the bakery pastry training curriculum doesn't include any digital competency. But if you look at the herbalist program curriculum, it integrates several digital competency at different proficiency levels. We also identified certain trends, and this table displayed the 21 competency ranked by popularity in all of our training programs. And we noticed that content creation was the most frequently addressed DigComp competency, while the competency related to protecting health and well-being was the least addressed. So what's the benefits of this analysis? This work has allowed us to have a global view of the states of development of digital competency in all of our training programs. It allows us to identify the digital competency that are least popular in our programs to create educational resources for trainers and directly for learners. And finally, it raised awareness among educational advisors who conduct the analysis about the DigComp framework. This brings us to the step 2. So with this element, we ask ourselves about the best way to develop our learners' digital competency and how do we integrate digital skills into our training programs. We decide to integrate digital competency from DigComp directly into our training curriculum documents rather than creating new courses specifically for digital competency. And we think that this approach has several advantages, such as making more sense for the learner by linking digital skills directly to job-related professional skills. Indeed, our learning and the use of the digital technology are not disconnected from the job context. And we think that it gives learners the opportunity to practice their digital skills several times throughout their training program. Here is an example of how digital skills have been integrated into a florist training curriculum document. And in this table, you can see on the left, the job-related professional skills. In the center, the digital competency, and on the right, some ideas of activity that the learners can use to practice digital skills. And for example, you can see that the you may find on the left the job-related professional skill designing floral decoration. And to design a floral decoration, you may need to use several digital competency, such as searching for inspiration on the internet and evaluating the content on DigComp 1.1 and 1.2. And on the right, the learner can find the trainer can find some activities like an exercise on the credibility and relevance of source content. To conclude this part, this project and the methodology is for implementing DigComp is still in progress. At this point, we have integrated digital competency into a few training programs, and it's important to support trainers in the adoption of this change in the document curriculum, and we need to provide them some resource about DigComp and digital competency to ensure that they are able to teach digital skills effectively to the learners. And the DigComp resource presented earlier by Denis play a critical role in this process. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Gaylord. So moving on to the next part, now I'm going to explain how we created at Bruxelles Formation a digital skills test that is available at the moment at Bruxelles Formation. So Bruxelles Formation is currently working on 3 different projects assessing the digital skills. The first one is to assess the skills of our staff. The second one is in collaboration with other institutions to assess the digital skills of all job seekers in Brussels. And the last one is to test the digital skills of our trainees, so our trainees. So I'm just going to talk about the last project today, which is to create a digital test for our trainees. So in terms of building a test, if you're interested in the creation phase, this is the 4th step that we followed in order to create the test. The first one is, of course, to defining clearly the scopes and the objectives before building anything. The second one is developing the test items, which are very important in order to measure accurately the skills of the candidates, of the trainees. And the last one that is very important too is creating an accurate report. And the final one is pilot and refine. Starting with defining the scope and objectives of the project. So our problem at Bruxelles Formation, one problem amongst many, is to assess the basic digital skills of students, of trainees, before and during courses. So we have the issue that depending on the training, of course, but when the digital skills are required, students, trainees, attend a training and they have different level of digital skills. So some of them can be very familiar with using a computer. Some of them might be able to use a web browser on a computer. Some of them might be more familiar on a cell phone, and some of them might need are not familiar at all. So sometimes it happens that the trainer needs to take off its own time of training to help trainees have the skills, for example, to send an email, which was not dedicated to, which was not I don't find the word, but not prévu in the training curriculum. So the trainer has to take additional time to make sure every trainee is up to date with the content. So this is our problem. We wanted to assess the digital skills of our audience, or the trainees. Our objective is, the objective of this test is to see if someone is able to use a computer and the basic tools on their own. And if not, what training do they need to attend? In terms of duration, we think that 30 minutes is a good timing to assess a test. We could go a little bit more, but an hour is a long time. And methods, we wanted to use the DigComp framework, level 3, which means that autonomous, to make sure that someone is able to use a computer and basic digital skills on its own, which translate to level 3. And we wanted to use practical questions. This is why, and we've worked with a private company for this, company called Isograd, because they had an interesting technology that creates a real environment to test the skills. So they have a simulation, I'm calling it a simulation, but it's not a simulation, that really ask the trainees to send an email. For example, if the question is, are you able to send an email? The environment really asks the candidates to send an email on Outlook, for in this case, and if he managed to do it, just like he has to do it in real life, this count as a positive answer. And they also had questions available in their data pool. So once we have this basis of objective and method, we start developing and selecting the right items. Once we start to building the test on its own, it is important. We had to decide what are the skills required, because once you go from basic digital skills, there's many questions that you could ask to test basic digital skills. Knowing that we have only 30 minutes, we cannot ask too many questions. So there's a balance to find. So we took some time to define what are the skills needed. The candidate needs to be able to use a computer, which means Windows. We're focusing on Windows. Who's using a web browser, able to save a document in the computer, sending emails, using a text document, attend a video conference, etc. We need to make sure that every item, every question measures autonomy. It's not as simple as that, but if we have only one question to test a competency, we need to pay really attention that is this question really measuring the capacity of someone to use a computer or a tool, specific tool on its own. Sometimes the questions are too easy, sometimes are too hard, so it is important to spend some time. Since the questions are practical, which means I've mentioned it I've mentioned it before, but if the candidate has to send an email and is not familiar with sending an email, it can take, a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes to send the email. So you cannot have a lot of questions because 1 minute per question is 30 questions. If it takes 2 minutes, it's 15 questions. So you have to mind the time. And we match. So once we've selected the questions that are important, we've matched them using DigComp. Which is an example here of the document we used. This is the question we selected for the second area of competence, communication and collaboration. We selected 5 questions and the related tools. What is important here is we've decided to step away from all competency. We took the area of competency, number 2, domain 2, the second area, and we didn't select all the competency because simply it wasn't relevant in what we wanted to do, and we think it's the right approach. It doesn't. We didn't select all the competency. We took only the one that felt relevant, and for some of the specific competencies, we ask more than one questions. Here you go. So this is the environment that the candidate see. So this is the question. You might not be able to read it, but the question is asking the question, is the user able to use a web browser to find a specific information? So this is the question we ask. We ask the candidate to find 2 specific information. He can use whatever web browser he wants, but he needs to find it and then fill the answer below. So that's the skill, specific skill that is measured. However, there's other skills that are measured that we do not ask, but that are required to answer this question. It's quite obvious once you know it, but it's important to know this too. So the trainee needs to be able to use a keyboard, of course, needs to be able to read the question and to understand it properly, but he also needs to manage double click, which is not obvious for anyone, for everyone, and he needs to understand the result of a web browser. So I'm explaining this to highlight the fact that you can ask a question, but there's all the underlying skills that are also measured. So you can measure additional skills with just one question. In terms of the instruction, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's important to mention it. Instruction is really important. They need to be clear and simple. Some of our users at Bruxelles Formation are not 100% familiar with French, but even that, sometimes you need to be, we paid a lot of attention to not create confusion with instruction. It happens more than we think. So we try to be as specific and simple as possible. Every word counts, really, to be as less word as possible. That's my advice. And we decided to highlight in bold the key actions, so anyone can understand what we ask from them by reading the answer, the instructions. The step 3, creating the report. I think this is a fundamental step. I don't think it's very detailed for most of the tests I've seen, but I think it's there's room for improvement, and we've paid a lot of attention on the final report. So at the end of this, everyone, any trainee that attend this test receive automatically a PDF. It's sent to the students, to the trainees, and to the teacher too. It's a PDF document, as I mentioned. So each PDF follows the DigComp structure. So the questions were divided between each area of competency, and then it's displayed in the report. It explains, the report explained the skills, the area of competency, and the tools used. It's simple to understand. So anyone that is not familiar with DigComp can understand the document. I think that's one of the key steps here. And there's no score because we want to assess basic digital skills. We do not want to, it's not an evaluation, it's not a certification, so there's no score. This is a screenshot, a little bit more detail of one area of expertise, area of competence. So there's a description of the area, and then there's one sentence per question. So if the candidates, if the trainees succeed at the question, it's going to be displayed on the left, which is mastered skill. And if he fails, it's going to be displayed on the right, points to improve. And this is quite interesting because the sentence selected, it's a competency, it's a skill, not specifically related to DigComp. It doesn't mention DigComp, but if it's displayed on the left, it means that anyone pedagogical advisor at Bruxelles Formation or anywhere not familiar with DigComp can read this document and find out that this particular candidate, this particular trainee can, I'm translating what is written now, so can launch a web browser, copy and paste the document and change the name, restore a folder from the trash box, and use internet, the web browser to find a specific information. He is not able to realize a sum, to complete a sum on Excel, use Windows to find, research on Windows to find a document. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is someone not familiar with DigComp can understand what this trainee is able to do it, if he's able to do it. And the last step, what we are right now, is putting it on the ground and see how it goes, because the feedback from the real students and teachers is really important. So right now we've tested more across 50 trainees, 8 classes, and with 4 trainers. And what is coming across right now is difficult to find balance between difficulty and failure. So we want the test to be hard enough to measure autonomy. And for some people, autonomy is really easy, but if we focusing on basic digital skills, it's not, some people are going to fail the test. And of course, failure is not the right word, but they're not going to be able to answer the questions correctly. So if a candidate is failing most questions, we are putting himself or herself in front of failure for 30 minutes, which is not what we want to do. But we need to be sure that the questions are hard enough to actually measure autonomy. So this is a difficult balance. We haven't found a solution yet, but that's, I believe, very important to keep in mind. And also it's important, you know, we're all aware of this, but find the balance between precision and timing. The more questions we ask, the more precise we're going to be able to see the skills of a candidate. But the more time we use, then it's you know, spending an hour completing a test is a lot of time. I don't think we need an hour, but you know, with 30 minutes, you have to select the right question. And the last one is, does the question measure the skills? It's not as easy as it sounds. We realized that some questions that we've created were not good enough. And for example, we need to make sure that we are testing the skill and not the knowledge. For example, one question was written in a way that if the candidate did not know what the word web browser, it could not complete the answer. But what we don't want to test the knowledge. We want to test the ability of someone to find an information. So it doesn't matter if he doesn't know the word web browser. He needs to be able to recognize the icon, double click, and do it. I'm checking the time. I think I'm fine. So in terms of next steps also, we need to be mindful of the cost because it takes people to work on it. It's not as simple as setting up the test. And it's people that are aware that manage the subscription, that explain to the trainers what it is. Trainers needs also to be trained. That's why I'm focusing on the final report. If it's simple, you do not need a lot of training. People will understand it, but there still need to be some time to make sure everyone understand how to set up the test properly and how to create the environment for trainees. One test for all. So at the minute, I'm asking all the teachers or the trainers their feedback, and all of them have a different perspective. Some of them prefer those questions, some of them prefer another one. So it's not easy to find a test that makes everyone happy. I think it's part of the game. And what is really important is what happens after testing. So just testing someone and not providing a solution afterwards is not a good solution. Sometimes you don't have the choice, but we're really trying to provide the accurate training. And we have at the moment a range of trainings that are available, but we think that in the future, if a candidate has 90% of the skills needed, there's just one skill missing, it does not need to follow the full training, just the one that he or she needs to manage the skill to be up to date in terms of skills. Okay, so that's the end for one project at Bruxelles Formation. We're not going to talk about what Gaylord at AFP done, but they've took a different approach. The documentation will be available at the end. So they use a different approach using Power BI and Microsoft 365. They've created all the tests themselves. It's very interesting, and if you're interested to find a different way to create a test, it's absolutely possible, and the documentation and the work of Gaylord and his colleague from IFA-PME is available for free. So key takeaways in terms of conclusion for our work for DigComp, we believe that raising awareness of digital skills is important. I think all of us here agree with this. It's important to train the trainers and on the importance of basic digital skills. I assume all of us here are experts, but it's easy to overlook how important it is. Of course, digital skills are more important, are more than office tools or programming. It is easy to confuse digital skills with Microsoft Word or specific tools or programmation for someone that is not familiar with DigComp. And what is interesting with DigComp, we believe, is we learned that protecting the environment is also linked to the digital skills. I mean, it's included into the framework, problem solving, etc. So digital skills is way more than just the basic, what we can think about when we don't have a transversal view of what it is. We also believe that popularizing DigComp could benefit all training providers. We think doing the work with Gaylord and the other institutions, working on the same framework, DigComp could really ease the communication between the institution. Speaking the same language is useful, and also creating the resources. We think that creating the resources that we've created are useful, and it make the process smoother for everyone. But of course, DigComp is just a tool, and meaning that it can facilitate the communication, but should it be used all the time everywhere? We do not think so. This is a question mark. Should it be known to everyone? For example, does a trainee needs to know what DigComp is about? I'm not sure, because it's quite complex to know. And when we start from the creation of the test, for example, and then it goes down to the final report, how do we communicate about each area of competences without to still be specific enough, but not sending too much information? So there's a balance to find, which is open to discussion. And what is really interesting for us, for Gaylord and I, that we've learned thanks to DigComp, is transversal skill from the area 4 and 5. So when we've analyzed all our training offers based on DigComp, what we realized is we can add transversal skills into our training offer. So why not adding in each training, depending on the training and the timing available, of course, but some of the security, which in Gaylord mentioned it, but we have the same in Bruxelles Formation. Security is usually overlooked, and DigComp brings this question that maybe we could add a simple topic of security on each training that when it makes sense. And also, I really enjoy. I mean, I really think the area 5 is adds a lot of value in terms of transversal skills. For example, the adding in each training the ability for a trainee to go out to finish the training and identify what skills he doesn't or she doesn't have at the moment and where can he go to learn more. So that was key to really interesting interesting topics, interesting insights that the DigComp framework brought to us. So we're reaching the end of this presentation. So I assume these are the links that if you're interested in additional materials, of course, we're going to share it afterwards. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us.
Okay. Thank you, Denis and Gaylord. Very, very interesting presentation. In fact, well, we'll think about it, but I think some of these resources that you produce are extremely interesting, and I would like to find a way to make them known and available also through the DigComp community of practice, because I think, you know, we have this project now going on, DigComp Hub, and I will post in the chat some information about it soon. And the purpose of this project is really doing things like this, identifying people who are doing interesting work, who develop tools, resources, and share them more widely. So we will definitely work on this in the next few days. So there is a question in the chat that maybe you want to pick up from Joanna Drazio, who said, did you use a particular questionnaire encompassing all the 21 components of DigComp 2.2 to explore whether your program is insured? Well, you already explained this to some extent. Did you convert the skills into questions and ask trainees to answer using, well, I think, I don't know, Joanna, if you, in the light of the presentation that was given, if this answer was answered or you still have some curiosity.
Yes, hello. Yes, it was covered by Denis' presentation in the second part of the presentation. Basically, my question and my intention is to find a tool that can be used in order to explore digital skills in a more practical way, because I have seen that there are many skills, for example, Digi skills, my Digi skills provided by All Digital. There is also the Test Your Digital Skills provided by Europass. So I was wondering whether there is a tool that measure digital skills in practice by asking participants to interact with something in order to measure their digital skills and not just answer questions using a Likert scale, for example.
Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, thank you, Joanna. There's tools available. We work with Isograd, which is a private company, but there's also tools, others available in the market that really ask the candidates to accomplish the task rather than a Likert scale, for example.
Okay. There is another question from Judith, Judith Cosgrove, who asks, thanks for the presentation. Two questions. One is how difficulty is defined. Is it percentage of correct I don't know. This is the question. How validity is tested? Is it empirical, expert review, or a combination? And the thought, the issue about the test targeting to level of autonomy is so important. Had you considered a screening test assessing the underlying procedural skills, such as mouse clicking, and only test those which pass the basic screening test to avoid sense of failure among respondents? Okay.
Thank you, Judy. This is a very, very interesting question. Difficulty is defined based on, I mean, I'm just going to answer based on our test. Difficulty is defined based on the what are the skills required to be autonomous. This is how we do it. And then once we tested the program, once we put the questions forward in terms of in front of trainees, we see how many succeed and how many do not. So we have a percentage for each question, which is an interesting insight to see, you know, the success rate of each question, which means, is the question asked correctly, or is it too difficult? Because you're certainly aware, but when the success rate is low, it doesn't necessarily mean that the question is difficult. Maybe it's not written enough. So we're gonna see it through times and trials, as many with more trainees completing the task, which one are more difficult. But as a general difficulty, it's just, is the candidate able to send an email? So he has to, could you please send an email with an attached file? So this is to answer the first part of the question. Regarding the second part, so if I understand correctly, a screening test assessing the underlying procedural skills, such as mouse clicking. At the moment, we have two options. We do not, if someone says to us, I cannot use a computer, then he doesn't need a test. We just direct him to the training starting from scratch. So this is, of course, we do not want to put forward a test, to put someone in front of a test assessing digital skills, someone that says, I cannot use a computer. But some people say, okay, I'm familiar with a computer, and they are not. And those people, we put them in front of the test. I mean, that's the idea at the moment. And they are confronting with, they cannot succeed it. They cannot succeed. So what I tried to do when there was a class and I could see attendees were failing, is to really explain at the beginning that this is not a certification. This is part of a training process, and that each mistake they make, the word mistake is not good enough, they're going to be trained out. So this is a screening to help us know what skills you need to learn. And I think I've spent a lot of time and attention to explain it clearly. However, even saying that, some of them felt, I could feel that the motivation was low. So the solution I'm thinking now is to divide the test into read 15 minutes, just even more basic, which raised the question, what's his basic, but just using Windows and saving a folder, for example, connecting to Wi-Fi, and not any tools related to typing a text, for example, because it builds on. It's still basic in terms of DigComp, but it's a solution I'm thinking at the moment. We haven't decided yet. We need to do more testing. Yes, I think that was the last part of the question. Okay.
Yes. Now, Gemma Parado is asking, and how did...
I just want to
yes,
maybe one final detail, because it's more difficult to test the validity because it's not a questionnaire. Since it's practical question, it's a little bit harder than I mean, maybe it's not harder, but it's different than usual psychometric validity. Sorry, Stefano.
No, I was just pointing to one last question. We are almost running out of time by Gema Parado, who asks, how did you determine the skill levels to be worked on in the training? I guess now this might mean two different things, because the training, let's say the training is partly related to professional activities and partly is related to enhancing the digital skilling where you find some gaps, for instance. So, but anyway, this is the question that was asked.
The way I understand it is, I think it's a mix of the way I understand this question is a mix of how did the framework DigComp assess level 1 and 2. So the DigComp framework assess that level 3 is someone that is able to use that is autonomous using the different tasks. So this is described by DigComp. We just took the suggestion from DigComp and put it in our own training. In our training, how we determine the skills level work on the training, it really depends on the training. Some people need just 1 day training, initiation on Microsoft Word, for example, to write down their CV. Some of them subscribe to 3 months intensive training to use all the tools related to computer. Some of them, but they all, when they started the training, they do have the basic skills already. Some of them just do not know how to use a computer, but they do not have the time neither. So they just want a small a training that is not too much time consuming. And if it's 60 hours training, someone that is not familiar with a computer, it's not realistic to hope that they're going to be at ease with any task of a computer after 60 hours. So we're not expecting autonomy after that kind of training, but it's a step forward. So I would say it really depends. As much as possible, aim for autonomy, of course. If transversal autonomy is not possible, try to be specific depending on the time available from the, but as much as possible, aim for autonomy, or at least educating someone to be able to know where they need to go if they want to learn the skills.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you tell a little bit more concerning what options will happen for the training after the testing?
Good question. What will happen to the trainee after the testing? So it depends on how the test is going to be used. At the moment, there are 2 options that we're exploring across the, so we have 12 training centers in Bruxelles Formation. Each one has a different way to work from the other one. For some training center, we're going to use it before the training. I think that's to assess the skill. Does he have the skills required to attend this training? If not, then directing him or her towards training that we already have. Once more people are gonna, we're gonna see the result of more people. We're gonna see, okay, if 50% of people need this specific type of training, then this is gonna give us information on which new courses we could create. In terms of the other way we use the trainings, we have a full intense training course based on digital skills and language skills. So the students are already in a 3-month-long program, and we're thinking to give them the test during the training. So they have a trainer specialized in IT during 3 months. So if the students can follow, show the results, the PDF results to the trainer can adapt the training materials based on the class. So it depends on the context. If the students are already in a class and their time is allocated, then these results can be personalized to the liking of the trainer, which I think is key also to give some flexibility to the trainer. If we realize beforehand that a lot of trainees, a lot of results indicate that we need, for example, more training on video conference, this is something we can create afterwards.
Okay, thank you. I would say there is a last question by Ebba. How do trainees experience the testing? Skills, knowledge?
With pleasure. I'm not sure to understand fully the question. So if you mention that, how do they experience it? Like they're sitting in front of a computer and they have to complete the task. In terms of skills and knowledge, we do not measure knowledge in a sense that there's no questions open. There's no the QCM. I'm not sure about the word in English.
Multiple choice questions.
Multiple choice question. We try to avoid these as much as possible because we have the tool available. I think there's one or two some available open-ended questions, but so it's mainly skills. But of course, sometimes in instructions, knowledge is measured because if the wording, if you need to know to go back to my previous example, what a web browser is, then that's a knowledge. But we're measuring skills. We do not measure attitude during the test. We can see it during the class, but it's not measured with the test. I hope I'm answering your question.
Okay, Denis, Gaylord, thank you very much. I think we can finish here. The presentation, the slides will be posted into the DigComp Hub and or there, and most likely also in the resources section of the DigComp Hub website. I posted a link to the next webinar that we are organizing next week, which is about another project from Belgium, but this time from the Flanders region, where they developed an interesting learning environment-based website, which was designed as a learning environment for trainers who work with third country nationals on second language skilling, the language needed to look for a job, and digital skills. So we encourage you to join also the next webinar, and on the DigComp Hub you will find more information about the follow-up of these activities. So I forgot, sorry, can everybody switch on their camera, because we need to take a photo of this, whoever, of course, those who are happy with this. You don't have to, you're not obliged. Sasha, are you going to take the picture? Yeah.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Stefano. Yeah, so we will wait a few minutes for those who are connecting.
I would say a few seconds.
Yes. Yeah, a few seconds, okay. And be ready to smile in 3, 2, 1, smile. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. So nice to see everybody, and thank you very much for joining today. And I hope we'll see you next week, most of you. Okay. Goodbye.
Thank you, Stefano.
Bye bye.
Peter.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Goodbye.